on. Well, welcome to the book club. Wednesday nights at 6:30 Phoenix time. Now that we have some other states in here. Uh, we are on page 203. We're reading the Celestine Prophecy. Looks like we're really towards the end, so hopefully we'll continue and jump into the next book and see where this journey takes us.
Yeah, and just a little framework. We've tried like different methods and styles of like reading, and what kind of fits is we take turns reading, and one person will read, and then whenever you're done, there's no time limit or time, expectation. Just read until you're done reading, and you can say I'll pass, and then the next person will pick up. And if there's anything, whether it's you reading or somebody else reading, that calls to you and you want to speak to something, speak up and just start speaking. And we have open dialogue throughout the whole thing. And so once we're done with that dialogue, we pick up reading where we left off and just continue until something else sparks our interest, so we can just have continuous conversation throughout the entire journey of, whatever calls to us. And there's so much in here that's just like,
Yeah, feel free to jump in wherever.
yeah.
That always feels good when we get to that spot. You don't want to hold that thought because
No.
we're gonna read and you're gonna get new thoughts. Let's get those thoughts out.
I love it.
Who would like to start?
I'll start.
All right. It looks like I believe we're on I tried. I think that's where we left off.
Yeah, I think it was a clean cut. So the very top of page 203. I tried to ignore him. We're just here for gas. We'll be gone in a few minutes. I turned around and faced the water again, hoping he would go away. He walked to the side of me. I think you better tell me who you are, Yankee. I looked at him again. He appeared to be serious. I'm an American, I said. I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm riding with a friend. A lost American, he said hostilely. That's right, I said. What are you after here, American? I'm not after anything, I said, trying to walk back to the car. And I've done nothing to you. Leave me alone. I noticed suddenly that Julia was standing at the vehicle. When I looked, the Peruvian turned and looked too. It's time to leave, Julia said. They're not in business any longer. Who are you? The Peruvian asked her in his hostile tone. Why are you so angry? Julia asked in response. The man's demeanor changed. Because it is my job to look after this place. I'm sure you do a good job, but it's hard for people to talk if you're frightening them. The man stared, trying to figure Julia out. We're on our way to Iquitos, Julia said. We're working with Father Sanchez and Father Carl. Do you know them? He shook his head, but the mention of the two priests settled him down even more. He finally nodded and walked away. Let's go, Julia said. We got in the truck and drove away. I realized how anxious and nervous I had been. I tried to shake it off. Did anything happen inside? I asked. Julia looked at me. What do you mean? I mean, did anything happen inside to explain why you had the thought to stop? She laughed, then said, no, all the action was outside. I looked at her. Have you figured it out? She asked. No, I replied. What were you thinking about just before we arrived? That I wanted to stretch my legs? No, before that. What were you asking about when we were talking? I tried to think. We were talking about childhood dramas. Then I remembered. You had said something that had confused me, I said. You had said that a person cannot play a control drama with us unless we play the matching drama. I didn't understand that. Do you understand now? Not really. What are you getting at? The scene outside clearly demonstrated what happens if you do play the matching drama. How? She glanced at me briefly. What drama was the man playing with you? He was obviously the intimidator. Right. And what drama did you play? I was just trying to get him off my back. I know, but what drama were you playing? Well, I started off in my aloofness drama, but he kept coming after me. Then, the conversation was irritating me, but I tried to get centered and stay with it. I looked at Julie and said, I guess I was playing a poor me. She smiled. That's right. I noticed you handled him with no problem, I said. only because I didn't play the drama he expected. Remember that each person's control drama was formed in childhood in relation to another drama. Therefore, each drama needs a matching drama to be fully played out. What the intimidator needs in order to get energy is either a poor me or another intimidator. This is so freaking true.
Yes.
Like the moment, it's like the fire. If the fire has no air, then it can't burn. And so if you don't play in that energy exchange, if you don't give gas to the fire, give air to the fire, then there's nothing to burn. That's that place, like when we were talking to Alone, there's a gentleman Alone at the festival that was in our camp, and he was asking about, you know, somebody saying something condescending. And it's like, well, that's their intention, that's their responsibility, the intention they have behind their words. However, it's your responsibility how you respond to them. Like if somebody were to call me a kid, whether they're trying to be condescending or not, my answer is going to be thank you. That's the goal. Like, hell yeah, I want to be a kid, right? And if I respond with happiness or joy or excitement or anything like that, nothing's going to catch. There's nothing to stick to if there's nothing sticky. And that's been something so amazing to witness over the last year and a half or so, like really stepping into that. And I mean, it's a practice, but it's so true. Like if we don't play, there's nothing that continues.
Yeah, and it's bigger than even control dramas. Like it's just energetics in general. When people aren't in the same energetics, the conversation, the communication, all of it struggles. It seems that like when even especially in like relationships, when I grow and I change, I don't have time and energy for the other exchange. And then when you do reconnect, it's like, what was I there for? You know what I mean? That whole the energetic exchange changes, and then there's no more connection.
Yeah, or they just don't even stay. Like our camp was a beautiful space for that. Like we cultivated such deep, just loving, peaceful, calm, grounded energy that we would have people, and we made it an open space for people to come on in, right? There's plenty of chairs and around the fire. But like there would be people that would come in and they'd sit for just a couple minutes. And one guy was even told his friend, he's like, why the fuck do you bring me here?
Right,
And
yeah,
he
right,
peaced
yeah.
out. We're like, okay, bye, have a great night. You know, like if there's when we hold our energy and it's so grounded in ourselves and not dependent on how anybody responds or receives or reacts to us, like that's what dictates what comes and what stays and what goes and what flows through. And it's just been super interesting to witness. All right. How did you handle it? I asked, still confused. My drama response. Ooh, my drama response. Fuck yeah. Would have been to play the intimidator myself, trying to out-intimidate him. Of course, this would probably have resulted in violence. But instead, I did what the manuscript instructs. I named the drama he was playing. All dramas are covert strategies to get energy. He was trying to intimidate you out of your energy. When he tried that on me, I named what he was doing. That's why you asked why he was so angry? Yes. The manuscript says that covert manipulations for energy can't exist if you bring them into consciousness by pointing them out. Wow.
Mm.
They cease to be covert. It is a very simple method. The best truth about what's going on in a conversation always prevails. After that, the person has to be more real and honest. That makes sense, I said. I guess I've even named dramas myself before, though I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sure that's something all of us have done. We're just learning more about what is at stake. And the key to making it work is to simultaneously look beyond the drama at the real person in front of you and send as much energy their way as possible. If they can feel energy coming in anyway, then it's easier for them to give up their way of manipulating for it. What could you appreciate in that guy? I said. I could appreciate him as a scared little insecure boy needing energy desperately. Besides, he brought you a very timely message, right? I looked at her. She appeared to be on the verge of laughter. You think we stopped there just so I could grasp how to deal with someone playing a drama? That was the question you asked, wasn't it? I smiled, my good feeling beginning to return. Yes, I guess it was. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you. A mosquito buzzing around my face forced me awake. I looked over at Julia. She was smiling as though recalling something humorous. For several hours after leaving the river camp, we had ridden in silence, munching on the food Julia had prepared for the trip. You're awake? Julia said. Yes, I replied. How far is Iquitos? The town is about 30 miles, but the Stewart Inn is only a few minutes ahead. It's a small inn and a hunting camp. The owner is English and supports the manuscript. She smiled again. We have many good times together. Unless something has happened, he should be there. I hope we can get a lead on where Will is. She pulled the truck up to the side of the road and looked at me. We better get centered in where we are, she said. Before I ran into you again, I had been floundering around, wanting to help find the ninth insight, but not knowing where to go. At one point, I realized I had been thinking repeatedly of Hinton. I get to his house, and who should show up but you? And you tell me that you're looking for Will, and that he's rumored to be in Iquitos. I have the intuition that we'll both be involved in finding the ninth insight. And then you have the intention that at some point we separate and go different directions. Is that pretty much it? Yes, I said. Well, I want to know that after that, I got to thinking about Willie Stewart and the end. Something is going to happen there. I nodded. She drove the vehicle back on the road and around a curve. There's the inn, Julia said. About 200 yards, where the road took a sharp bend to the right, was a two-story Victorian-style home. We pulled into a gravel parking area and stopped. Several men were talking on the porch. I opened the door of the vehicle and was about to get out when Julia touched my shoulder. Remember, she said, no one is here by accident. Stay alert for the messages. I followed her as we walked up on the porch. The men, well-dressed Peruvians, nodded distractedly as we walked by them and into the house. Once in a large foyer, Julia pointed to a dining room and asked me to pick a table and wait there while she looked for the owner. I surveyed the room. It contained a dozen or so tables lined in 2 rows. I picked a table about halfway down and sat with my back against the wall. 3 more men, all Peruvians, came in behind me and sat down across from my table. Another man came in soon after and took a table about 20 feet to my right. He sat at an angle where his back was slightly toward me. I noticed he was a foreigner, perhaps European. Julia entered the room, spotted me, and walked over and sat down facing me. The owner isn't here, she said. The clerk knew nothing of Will. Now what? I asked. She looked at me and shrugged. I don't know. We'll have to assume that someone here has a message for us. Who do you think it is? I don't know. How do you know it'll happen? I asked, suddenly feeling skeptical. Even after all the mysterious coincidences that had happened to me since I had been in Peru, I still had trouble believing one would occur now just because we wanted it to. Don't forget the third insight, Julia replied. The universe energy is energy that responds to our expectations. People are part of that energy universe too. So when we have a question, the people show up who have the answer. She cut her eyes to the other people in the room. I don't know who these people are, but if we could talk with them long enough, we could find out a truth each had for us. Some part of the answer to our questions.
Mm.
I looked at her askance. She leaned toward me across the table. Get it into your head. Everyone who crosses our path has a message for us. Otherwise, they would have taken another path, or left earlier or later. The fact that these people are here means that they are here for some reason.
Dude, like, what if we lived life like that?
Right.
Like, truly lived life like that. And like, embodied that so fully, not just when we're happy and, in the places we want to be, but like in those difficult places, in those places of questioning, of uncertainty. And instead of like being in this space of, and I'm speaking of myself right now, of this space of like, I don't know what to do and everyone's against me and da 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 da, like really like taking the time and intention to hone that morning practice or hone a practice to get the energy up, to be open to knowing everybody has a piece of the puzzle for us. And everybody has a message for us. Like, and it's right there, right? It's here. This is what we're living right now. This is what we're beginning to embody and we're stepping deeper into. Like, this is the fucking secret wild path, man.
It really does, attentiveness, listening, being in each conversation, and that's just something I guess I've been practicing and being, that's been very apparent to me for a while. I mean, not in this detail, so this helps make it even a bigger deal. But that's the listening to what's being said. I mean, everybody's got something to say, but why are they saying it? They would have said it to somebody else if it wasn't meant for me.
We were just talking about that in Gene Keys today. The listening, the pure presence, right? And exactly, like they would be somewhere else
Yeah.
if they didn't have something for me. But there's something here for me. Everybody and everything is here for me. And all we need to do is listen, be present.
Present.
Kind of like what we were talking about too. It's like, I love how there's so much more conversation happening. That's like, what happened to you? Like, tell me your story. Share with me how you arrived at that perspective, instead of just like, what the hell is wrong with you? It's like,
yeah.
the
Or like arguing
conversation
our
is-
point.
Yeah, it's like it's shifting. Like, what happened there? Like, let's unpack that or whatever. But yes.
Yeah, or like even just allowing the different perspective, right? Like that moment I was talking with a friend, Kylie, and she was like, we were talking about simplicity, and she's like, it's not fucking simple. I was like, and it gets to not be simple. It also gets to be simple.
Yeah, that gets to be the sovereign choice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, and like you said, like asking, how did you get there? What's your story? Tell me the journey it took for you to be here speaking what you're speaking. I genuinely want to know. I want to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, I love it's like the next best thing if you're not saying, like, how do you say I love you without saying I love you? And I love, like, tell me more. You just
Yes.
want to hear whatever is alive for you, and like to be able to listen without that agenda, like we were talking, to just listen on the plane of the heart, not on the plane of the mind, not listening to respond, not listening with a reaction or judgment, literally just on this other plane of existence, just listening, just through your body listening. Powerful.
I looked at her, still not sure whether I believe it was that simple. The hard part, she said, is figuring out who to take time to talk with when talking with everyone is impossible. How do you decide? I asked. The manuscript says there are signs. I was listening intently to Julia. For some reason, I glanced around and looked at the man to my right. He turned around at exactly the same time and looked back at me. As I caught his eye, he shifted his gaze back to his food. I also looked away. What signs? I asked. Signs like that, she said. Like what? Like what you just did. She nodded toward the man to my right. What do you mean? Julia leaned toward me again. The manuscript says that we will learn that sudden, spontaneous eye contact is a sign that two people should talk. But doesn't that happen all the time? I asked. Yes, it does, she said. After it happens, most people just forget about it and go on with what they are doing. I nodded. What other signs does the manuscript mention? I asked. A sense of recognition, she replied. Seeing someone who looks familiar, even though you know you haven't seen that person before. When she said that, I thought of Dobson and Renault, of how familiar they looked when I had first seen them. Does the manuscript say anything about why some people look familiar? I asked. Not much. It says we are members of the same thought group with certain other people. Though groups are usually evolving along the same lines of interest. They think the same, and that creates the same expression and outward experience. We intuitively recognize members of our thought group, and very often they provide messages for us. I looked at the man to my right one more time. He did look vaguely familiar. Incredibly, as I gazed at him, he turned and glanced at me again. I quickly looked back at Julia. You must talk with this man, Julia said. I didn't respond. I felt uncomfortable with the idea of just walking up to him. I wanted to leave and go on to Icaros. I was about to make that suggestion when Julia spoke again. That's where we need to be, she said. Not Iquitos. We have to play this out. The trouble with you is that you're resisting the idea of walking up to him and starting a conversation. How did you do that? I asked. Do what? She replied. Now, what I was thinking? There's nothing mysterious about it. It's a matter of looking closely at your expressions. What do you mean? When you are appreciating someone at a deeper level, you can see their most honest self beyond any facades they may put up. When you really focus at this level, you can perceive what someone is thinking as a subtle expression on their face. This is perfectly natural. It sounds telepathic to me, I said. She grinned. Telepathy is perfectly natural. I glanced over at the man again. He did not look. You had better get your energy together and talk with him, Julia said, before you lose the opportunity. I focused on increasing my energy until I felt stronger, then asked, what am I going to say to this guy? The truth, she said. Put the truth in a form you think he would recognize. Okay, I will. I slid back my chair and walked over to where the man was sitting. He looked shy and nervous, the way I remember Pablo looking the night I met him. I tried to look beyond the man's nervousness into a deeper level. When I did, I seemed to perceive a new look on his face, one with more energy. Hello, I said. You appear to not be a native Peruvian. I'm hoping you can help me. I'm looking for a friend of mine, Will James. Please sit down, he said in Scandinavian accent. I'm a Professor Edmund Connor. He offered me his hand and said, I'm sorry, I do not know your friend Will. I introduced myself and then explained, just on a hunch, it would mean something to him that Will was searching for the ninth insight. I am familiar with the manuscript, he said. I'm here to study its authenticity. Alone? I was to meet a Professor Dobson here, but so far he has not come. I don't understand the delay. He assured me that he would be here when I arrived. I'll go ahead and pass.
All right. Do you have the book, Sheena? No? Okay.
I'm going to sneak off and go ahead and keep reading.
All right. You know Dobson? Yes. He is the one who is organizing an inspection of the manuscript. And he's all right? He's coming here? The professor looked at me questioningly. Those were the plans we made. Has something been wrong? My energy fell. I realized that Dobson's meeting with Connor had been set up before Dobson's arrest. I met him on the airplane, I explained. When I came to Peru, he was arrested in Lima. I have no idea what happened to him. Arrested? My God. When did you last speak with him? I asked. Several weeks ago, but our meeting time here was firm. He said he would call me if anything changed. Do you remember why he wanted you to meet him here instead of Lima? I asked. He said there were some ruins around here that he would be up in this area, speaking with another scientist. Did he mention where he would be talking to the scientist? Yes, he said he had to go to San Luis, I believe. Why? I don't know. I was just wondering. As I said this, two things happened simultaneously. First, I began thinking of Dobson, of seeing him again. We were meeting along a road with large trees, and then at the same time, I looked out the window and saw, to my amazement, Father Sanchez walking up the porch steps. He looked tired and his clothes were dirty. In the parking lot, another priest waited in an old car. "Who is that?" Professor Connor asked. "It's Father Sanchez," I replied, barely able to contain my excitement. I turned around and looked for Julia, but she was no longer sitting at our table. I got up just as Sanchez walked into the room. When he saw me, he stopped abruptly, a look of total surprise on his face, and he walked over and embraced me. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes, fine," I said. "What are you doing here?" Through his fatigue, he chuckled lightly. "I don't know where else to go, and I almost didn't make it here. Hundreds of troops are headed this way." "Why are the troops coming?" Connor asked from behind me, walking up to where Sanchez and I were standing. "I'm sorry," Sanchez replied. "I do not know what the troops have in mind. I just know there are many." I introduced the two men and Father Sanchez and told Father Sanchez of Connor's situation. Connor appeared panicked. "I must leave," he said, "but I have no driver." "Father Paul is waiting outside," Sanchez said. "He is going back to Lima immediately. You may ride with him if you wish." "Indeed I do," Connor said. "Wait, what if they run into those troops?" I asked. "I don't think they would stop Father Paul," Sanchez said. "He's not well known." At that moment, Julia came back into the room and saw Sanchez. The two hugged warmly, and again I introduced Connor. As I spoke, Connor seemed to grow even more fearful, and after only a few minutes, Sanchez told him it was time for Father Paul to start back. Connor left to get his belongings from his room and quickly returned. Both Sanchez and Julia escorted him outside, but I told him goodbye there and waited at the table. I wanted to think. I knew meeting Connor was significant somehow, and that Sanchez finding us here was important, but I couldn't quite figure it out. Before long, Julia came back into the room and sat down beside me. "I told you something was going to happen here," she said. "If we hadn't stopped, we wouldn't have seen Sanchez, or Connor for that matter. By the way, what did you learn from Connor?" "I'm not sure yet," I said. "Where is Father Sanchez?" "He checked into a room to rest for a while. He hasn't slept in 2 days." I looked away. I knew that Sanchez was tired, but hearing that he was unavailable disappointed me. I wanted very much to talk with him, to see if he could add some perspective to what was happening, especially concerning the soldiers. I felt uneasy, and a part of me wanted to flee with Connor. Julia picked up on my impatience. "Take it easy," she said. "Slow down and tell me what you think of the 8th insight so far." I looked at her and tried to center myself. I'm not sure where to start. "What do you think the 8th insight is saying?" I thought back. It's about a way of relating to other people, to children and to adults. It's about naming control dramas and breaking through them and focusing on other people in a way that sends them energy. "And?" she asked. I focused on her face and immediately saw what she was getting at. "And if we are observant about who to talk with, then we get the answers we desire as a result." Julia smiled broadly. "Have I grasped the insight?" I asked. "Almost," she said, "but there's one more thing. You understand how one person can uplift another. Now you're about to see what happens in a group when all of the participants know how to interact in this way."
Hmm.
The beauty of community.
Yeah.
I walked out to the porch and sat in one of the wrought iron chairs. After a few minutes, Julia came through the door and joined me. We had eaten a leisurely dinner without much talking, and afterward had decided to sit outside in the night air. 3 hours had gone by since Sanchez had gone to his room, and I was beginning to feel impatient again. When Sanchez suddenly walked outside and sat down with us, I was relieved. "Have you heard anything about Will?" I asked him. When I spoke, he slid his chair around to face Julia and me. I noticed that he was carefully adjusting the position of his chair so that he was an equal distance from each of us. "Yes," he said finally, "I have." He paused again and appeared to be in thought, so I asked, What did you hear? Let me tell you everything that happened, he said. When Father Carl and I left to go back to my mission, we expected to find Father Sebastian there along with the military. We expected an inquisition. When we arrived, we found that Father Sebastian and the soldiers had left abruptly several hours earlier after receiving a message. For a whole day, we didn't know what was going on. Then yesterday, we were visited by a Father Custos, whom I understand you have met. He told us that he was directed to my mission by Will James. Apparently, Will remembered the name of my mission from his conversation earlier with Father Carl, and intuitively knew that we would need the information Father Custos was bringing. Father Custos has decided to support the manuscript. Why did Sebastian leave so suddenly? I asked. Because, Sanchez said, he wanted to speed up the implementation of his plans. The message he received told him that Father Costas was about to expose his intention to destroy the ninth insight. Sebastian found it? Not yet, but he expects to. They found another document that indicated where the ninth is. Where is it supposed to be? Julia asked. At the Celestine ruins, Sanchez replied. Where is that? I inquired. Julia looked at me. About 60 miles from here. It's a dig the Peruvian scientists have excavated exclusively and with quite a lot of secrecy. It consists of several layers of ancient temples, first Mayan, then Inca. Apparently, both cultures believed there was something special about that location. I suddenly realized that Sanchez was concentrating on the conversation with unusual intensity. When I talked, he would focus totally on me, without breaking his gaze at all. When Julia spoke, Father Sanchez shifted his position to focus completely on her. He seemed to be acting very deliberately. I wondered what he was doing, and at that precise moment, there occurred a lull in the conversation. They both looked at me expectantly. What? I asked. Sanchez smiled. It's your time to speak. Are we taking turns? I asked. No, Julia said. We are having a conscious conversation. Each person speaks when the energy moves to him. We could tell it had moved to you. Oh, that just gave me goosebumps. Like, conscious conversation.
I don't handle anything else anymore. Everything else is just ugh.
Right? I didn't know what to say. Sanchez looked at me warmly. Part of the eighth insight is learning to interact consciously when in a group, but don't get self-conscious. Just understand the process. As the members of a group talk, only one will have the most powerful idea at any one point in time. If they are alert, the others in the group can feel who is about to speak, and then they can consciously focus their energy on this person, helping to bring out his idea with the greatest clarity. Then, as the conversation proceeds, someone else will have the most powerful idea, then someone else, and so forth. If you concentrate on what is being said, you can feel when it is your turn. The idea will come up into your mind. The thing, as it said, the thing will come up into your mind. It was the round table. Like, this is what that round table is. This is what it is to be in council. And to, like, everything that we've been talking about today, just whether it was gene keys or whether it was our conversations or anything like that, the pure presence. And I'm reminded we were watching this band at a kava bar, and it was so interesting because depending on who the main instrument player was, because they were all playing their instruments, but whoever was taking the stage, right, having their solo or whatever it was, every member of the band would look directly at that person. And then when it would shift to another band member, the band would transition and just look at the other person that was playing. And it was really neat to witness that happen in a musical setting.
That's right.
Sanchez shifted his eyes to Julia, who asked, "What idea were you having when you didn't express?" I tried to think. I was wondering, I said finally, why Father Sanchez was looking intensely at whomever was speaking. I guess I was wondering what it meant. The key to this process, Sanchez said, is to speak up when it is your moment and to project energy when it is someone else's time. Many things can go wrong, Julia interjected. Some people get inflated when in a group. They feel the power of an idea and express it. Then, because that burst of energy feels so good, they keep on talking, long after the energy should have shifted to someone else. They try to monopolize the group. Others are pulled back, and even when they feel the power of an idea, they won't risk saying it. When this happens, the group fragments, and the members don't get the benefit of all the messages. The same thing happens when some members of the group are not accepted by some of the others. The rejected individuals are prevented from receiving the energy, and so the group misses the benefit of their ideas. Julia paused, and we both looked at Sanchez, who was taking a breath to speak. How people are excluded is important, he said. When we dislike someone or feel threatened by someone, the natural tendency is to focus on something we dislike about the person, something that irritates us. Unfortunately, when we do this, instead of seeing the deeper beauty of the person and giving them energy, we take energy away and actually do them harm. All they know is that they suddenly feel less beautiful and less confident, and it is because we sapped their energy. That is why, Julia said, this process is so important. Humans are aging each other at a tremendous rate out there with their violent competitions. But remember, Sanchez added, in a truly functional group, the idea is to do the opposite of this. The idea is for every member's energy and vibration to increase because of the energy sent by all of the others. When this occurs, everyone's individual energy fields merge, and everybody's individual energy field merges with everybody else's and makes one pool of energy. It is as if the group is just one body, but one with many heads. Sometimes one head speaks for the body, sometimes another talks. But in a group functioning this way, each individual knows when to speak and what to say because he truly sees life more clearly. This is the higher person the eighth insight talked about in connection with a romantic relationship between a man and a woman. But other groups can form one as well. And I think with that, I'll pass.
Father Sanchez's words made me think of Father Costos suddenly, and of Pablo. Had this young Indian finally changed Father Costos's mind, leading him to now want to preserve the manuscript? Was Pablo able to do this because of the power of the eighth insight? Where is Father Costos now? I asked. Both individuals looked mildly surprised at my question, but Father Sanchez quickly replied. He and Father Carl decided to go to Lima to speak with our church leaders about what Cardinal Sebastian seems to have planned. I guess that's why he was so adamant about going to our mission with you. He knew there was something else he was supposed to do. Exactly, Sanchez said. A lull developed in the conversation, and we looked at one another, each one of us waiting for the next idea. The question now, Father Sanchez finally said, is what we are supposed to do? Julia spoke first. I've had thoughts all along about being involved with the ninth insight somehow, of getting hold of it long enough to do something, but I can't quite see it clearly. Sanchez and I gazed at her intensely. I see this happening at a particular place, she continued. Wait a minute. The place I've been thinking about is at the ruins, at the Celestine ruins. There is a particular spot there between the temples I'd almost forgotten. She looked back at us. That's where I need to go. I need to go to the Celestine ruins. As Julia finished, both she and Sanchez shifted their gaze to me. I don't know, I said. I've been interested in why Sebastian and his people are so against the manuscript, I found out it's because the fear of the idea of our inner evolution. But now I don't know where to go. Those soldiers are coming. It appears that Sebastian is going to find the ninth insight first. I don't know. I've been thinking I'm involved somehow in convincing him not to destroy it. I stopped speaking. My thoughts went to Dobson again, and then abruptly to the ninth insight. I suddenly realized that the ninth insight was going to reveal where the humans were going with this evolution. I had wondered how many humans had been acting, or what. I had wondered how humans would be acting toward each other as a result of the manuscript, and that question had been answered with the eighth insight. And now the logical next question was, where is all this going to lead? How will human society change? That had to be what the ninth insight was about. I knew somehow this knowledge could also be used to ease Sebastian's fears about conscious evolution, if he would listen. I still think Cardinal Sebastian can be convinced to support the manuscript, I said with conviction. You see yourself convincing him? Sanchez asked me. No, not really. I'm with someone else who can reach him, someone who knows him and can speak at his level. As I said that, Julia and I both spontaneously looked at Father Sanchez. He struggled to smile and spoke with resignation. Cardinal Sebastian and I have avoided a confrontation over the manuscript for a long time. He has always been my superior. He considered me his protege, and I must admit that I looked up to him. But I guess I always knew that it would come to this. The first time you mentioned it, I knew that you were that the task of convincing him was mine. My whole life has set me up for it. He looked intensely at Julia and me, then continued. My mother was a Christian reformer. She had hated the use of guilt and coercion when evangelizing. She felt that people should come to the religion because of love, not out of fear. My father, on the other hand, was a disciplinarian who later became a priest, and like Sebastian, believed adamantly in tradition and authority. That left me wanting to work within church authority, but always seeking ways it should be amended so that higher religious experience is emphasized. Dealing with Sebastian is the next step for me. I've been resisting it, but I know I have to go to Sebastian's mission at Iquitos. I'll ride with you, I said.
That's another thing that we were just talking about today. It was literally like how our entire lives has set us up for right here and right now. Like I was contemplating that this morning, and like what would happen, and working with people or just speaking to people in general, if instead of taking a look at all of the things that have happened to us in our life, taking a step back and witnessing, like having this awareness and looking through the lens of like, how has everything that has happened in my life been preparing me, or what has it been preparing me for? Even from the smallest things, like I took 7 years of Spanish in school and married into a Mexican family that spoke Spanish and learned Spanish in restaurants. And never in a million years at that time would I have thought that that was preparing me to sing Icaros, or to, sing medicine music, or to speak prayers in Spanish, or, never would I have thought that that's what that was for. Right. And to like take a look and everything, from the traumas and from the working through it, and from the not having money to see a coach and have anybody support me, and having to do it on my own and dig and research and all of it, like preparing me for this moment right here. Like how expanded would our awareness be of our purpose here in this world if we can reframe and adjust the lenses that we look at our past with, as instead of this thing that we've overcome, this school we went through to teach us all we needed to know to serve this world.
Mhm.
you know, and then just the way that they're weaving right now in that conversation of, you know, from before they got to the hotel of, okay, let's get clear, and
Mm.
to rename everything that's happened and their intentions and their questions that are looking to be, that they're looking for answers for, or the conscious conversation happening where everybody is supporting and giving the energy to the person who's meant to be speaking, to support them in their awareness, in building their energy, to be able to open to that awareness, that wisdom that's inside of us. Like, it's all here.
Mhm.
um Gosh, this is just
Mhm.
such a beautiful lesson in how to hold space, right? We're all holding space in communities. We're all holding, whether it's the sacred wild, whether it's your land, Sheena, whether it's in your classes, Paul, or medicine journeys, or anything like that. Like, what a beautiful process to bring to the table for everybody that we've crossed paths with. For me at the property management, you know, like, to be able to bring these practices into place, like, what a gift for all of us here. Mm.
And
Right.
even just like as cliche as it can sound, but like even that quote is like, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people won't forget how you made them feel, you know? And like, what if that's the entire purpose?
Right.
Is just to make people feel better, make people feel good, make people feel heard, make people feel loved, make people feel accepted. You know, that's it. Like if you can listen with every cell of your body, that you
Mm.
can just take someone in and just witness them, you know, like just in the glory of their magic, just observing that and seeing that and experiencing someone do that and like just letting that be that. That's it. That's all we're doing. It's just experiencing one another through our storytelling. So cool.
Right.
That's beautiful though. It makes it so simple. Stop fighting.
Yeah, right? I know, and especially like, you know, I was on the live oracle training in the Liberation Mystery School earlier, and like it's, yeah, the gate is unity, you know, unity consciousness, and like when can we just get on team love, that we can say like it's me and you versus this thing. It was never me versus you. It was never like that. It didn't ever have to be like that. It's all of us versus, you know, the fear versus the lack versus the low vibration. Like it's all of us, like, you know, taking the high road, doing the thing, you know, but what a change in attitude when we can just reframe that and be like, it's you and me versus that, whatever.
Right. And then it naturally also like flows into the control dramas, right? Because, you know, when we're freely giving that energy to people, then they can feel that, and they no longer feel that need to take, right? And so that person who is saying all the things just to be seen and heard then calms, or the person that is sitting away quiet, not speaking, gets more energized and confident in their communication and what they have to say, because they feel that safety, that energy of the love and the safety. And like, is like, is it that simple that instead of protecting my energy from being taken, I give it freely?
To be
And there is no end of energy. There is no, like, yes, we can get tired. Yes, we can get drained. That's simply a call to care for ourselves. But there is no end in this energy. It's infinite. And so instead of protecting it, we give it freely. What would happen then? Then there's no way, like, there's no way I can perceive anybody taking it. And if I can't perceive anybody taking it when I'm giving it freely, there's, those stories don't fit anymore. Those names, the judgments, the criticisms, they don't fit because I'm freely giving it to you. Here you go. Here, just take it. Yeah. And it reminds me of the the story in A Peaceful Warrior, which is another book I would love to read in the book club after we're done with the Celestine Prophecy series, where, you know, the teacher and the student, they're walking or whatever, and he's, you know, learning the things, and they get stopped by these people in an alleyway, and they're getting mugged, right? And they're like, give me your wallet and give me your, and so he's like, okay, here you go, here you go, you know, you guys look cold. And he starts taking off his jacket. Here, go ahead and take this. And he's like, you give the other guy yours, give it to him. And then he starts taking, you know, like, then the next scene, because it was the movie that I saw this in, and the next scene is them walking barefoot in their underwear back to the, and the student's like, what are you, what? And he's like, they obviously needed it more than we did. We don't need it. We have more clothes. We have more this. But when they're over here trying to take it, who knows? If we would have thought they had a gun.
Yeah.
But now there's no resistance. There's no fighting. There's no pushing. There's no amplifying the anger and the fear that's already living in them when we freely give it to them.
And it takes away the us versus them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What a rich lesson teaching, you know, just like we are all the chosen one,
Oh,
every single one of us.
And every single person came with a code, especially for you, that only you could hear their code, and only the way they could say their code could unlock your code within them. You know, like that in itself is just like, ah.
right. It changes the dynamic of everyday life. It really does.
Yeah. When you see everyone as a messenger and everyone with a perfect message for you, how
And
much
it's,
you just stop and listen?
yes, especially the ones you don't want to. You know what I mean? Like the bigger message there.
Yeah. Yeah. And also still learning that piece of discernment to know whether that message has been purified for you to receive that message at that time is still up to your own governor to decide how, by what channel you receive your messages. Yes, they can come in from every place, but how much are you gonna adhere or conform or take on or wear that message, you know, because there's so much interference and so many diluted channels and everything too, that discernment piece is so much to allow our whole body to listen and to allow our whole body to interpret what we're hearing so that we can somatically accept it as truth or not.
Right.
And then choose where we go with that. Like, I go back to my last relationship and think back to, like, because I can hear him now in his past conversations, and I'm like, he told me it was all about him. He would say that time and time again, and I wasn't able to hear it, or I heard it and chose to do something else with it instead of choosing for me, or choosing to hear that the message in that is, this isn't in alignment for you,
Yeah.
right? Or choosing to hear, oh, it's all about him for him. And that message is, it gets to be all about me for me. And being able to finally, you know, extract that message. And just like, you know, and that's that channels the frequency, right? Instead of listening through the frequency of, this is happening to me, or this is something I need to fix, or I'm unworthy, or I'm not worth having these beautiful messages being given to me, you know, and shifting that frequency to, everything is here for me. Everything is a lesson. Like, this is a gift being given to me. This is directing me on my next step. I wasn't making it all about me for me. And so in that, I interpreted that as, oh, it's all about him. So it has to be all about him for me too. Instead of it's all about him for him and it's all about me for me, and taking that in for myself, right? And the way you described that, Sheena, of everybody has this unique code for you specifically that only you can decode or translate, or like that was so beautifully put to be so like intricate and special, and it's like this treasure, right? That's being gifted to you in all ways.
And that's such a powerful reframe. And it's so important. And I just honor and receive it and just listen to it. Cause I'm like, I need to always remember that and take that in.
Yeah.
So good.
Ah,
What a perfect read.
right.
That perfect timing. We ended the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Emerging culture.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep. Next week.
Excited for next week.
Yep. Next week we start with the emerging culture.
Nice.
We get to see where this all goes, the magic, the beauty, and I'm so excited. I even felt the shift in like how we were having our communications of like whenever somebody was talking, it was like, oh yes. I'm excited to integrate that deeper into my way of being.
Right. Super cool to have you join us, Sheena. That was
Yes.
It's super awesome to be here. Just come into this little pod.
Yeah. I love you all so very much and look forward to seeing everybody again. Love you all.
All right, namaste.
Namaste. Loving ya.